Welcome back to the Moot Workshop. In our previous video, we restored the parts for the speaker for the 1930 Brunswick Model 15 radio. And as you can see, the cabinet is underway as well. That'll be in separate videos. But now we need to put all the parts back together for the speaker, this time on the Moot Workshop.
Closely with research. This is a
All right, here we have the shined up speaker chassis. The first thing I have to do is install the output transformer. I don't have the right kind of rivets for this, so I'm going to use these stainless steel screws. Stainless steel washers and stainless steel nuts. Only the best for this project. And now we're going to install the field coil. It's a big bolt that holds it in on the back side. Now we're going to install the big capacitor on the terminal strips on the speaker frame. Just like on the original, we're going to use rivets to do this. And we're going to include a little tab on each end to solder wires to. So we don't risk breaking the terminal strips, we're going to use this tool to squeeze the rivet down rather than hammering on it like we did when we put the rivets on the frame. The good news is that I thought enough to mark which side of the bucking coil is the outside and which is the inside, because we're about to make our first electrical connection and we need to tie the wire coming from the inside of the bucking coil to one side of the output transformer. Originally, they used a kind of an electrical tape to wind around that junction to insulate it. I'm going to use, because it's handy, some heat shrink tubing. Because most of the rest of the electrical connections are on those terminal strips, it's time to mount the speaker frame onto the chassis. Sharp-eyed viewers will note that I forgot to put the lock washers on the first two of these bolts. I'll go back and put those on in a little bit. I need to adjust it so there's an even gap all around this big washer, because the voice coil for the speaker cone fits down in that groove. Now the time has come to mount the cone onto the frame. What I'm going to be using to connect the two around the edges is this chamois cloth. It's basically just a thin, soft leather. It's the same as that stuff you use to dry your car. I'm told that that is probably what they used originally. I'm going to measure the frame, which is 12 inches, and I already know that the speaker is 10 inches. So I'm going to mark those on the cloth. So I can use a compass to make those circles. And then one more circle just a little bit further in to make room for tabs to connect the edge of the speaker cone to the cloth. I don't really know exactly how this was put together in the original, since none of this remains, so I'm a little bit making this up as I go along. Now I'm going to use contact cement. Going to put it around the edges of the cone. And now some contact cement around the little tabs on the inside of the ring of chamois. Now I'm going to try and stick these things together. This didn't work out quite as easily as I thought it was going to. I ended up having to pull and rearrange and then finally stick this down solid, but it worked out pretty well. Now we're going to put some contact cement around the whole outside edge of it where it's going to connect to the frame. I'm not going to put any cement around the edges of the frame until I've got the cone in place, because the contact cement will stick the moment it touches it, and I need to make sure I've got the cone perfectly centered. And now that it's in there, I'm going to very carefully go around the outside edge and paint on some cement and then dry each section with a hairdryer. And then once the cement on both sides is dry, you can stick it together and it grabs immediately. Now I'll just work my way around the whole rest of the frame. Now we get to hook up the wires on this side of the speaker. We got the wires coming from the speaker. I need to cut them to the right length and strip the insulation from the end. The black wire from the speaker and the outside wire from that bucking coil go to this terminal. The brown wire from the speaker and the other side of the transformer go to this terminal. And one side of the tone control gets connected to one end of the big capacitor. And yes, that is the sound of laundry tumbling in the background. I'm making all these connections based on notes I made when I took the thing apart and looking at schematics, but I'm still really terrified that I'm going to get some of this wrong, although I think I've got it right. Now we're going to hook up the wires coming from the wiring harness. I'm not going to make you watch me strip and tin 4 wires, so ta-da, here they are. One of the black wires from the wiring harness goes to one of the thin wires from the transformer, and those together connect to this tab that's connected to the big capacitor. Since I don't have any other kind of strain relief, and the original cable had the outside jacket sort of wound into a string that tied into one of the holes on this terminal strip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the longer of the wires through these extra holes on the terminal strip, so there's a little bit more of relief on the cable. If you pull on the wire, it hopefully won't pull the connections too bad. The brown wires from the wiring harness both splice onto wires from the field coil. I've made a note about which of the brown wires coming from which pin on the plug goes to which side of that coil. Hopefully I've got that right. All of these splices I'm using heat shrink tubing to insulate. Due to the unusual design of this speaker, the fact that it has the output transformer built into it, and it has a big electromagnet instead of a permanent magnet, it makes it a little difficult with any existing things that I have to really test the speaker to make sure it works before we finish the rest of the radio. So there's a little bit of nervousness here, but we're going to soldier on. The last connection is the other black wire, the other wire from the CAN transformer, and the other side of the tone control, all three of them tied up together. Now I just have to shrink all those pieces of tubing with the heat gun, and we'll be all set. And there we go. Here's a look back at what we started with. So much rust. So much rust. And now here's what we've ended with. A big improvement. Looks a lot better. Hopefully it'll work a lot better. Gonna cross our fingers on that. Now we're gonna turn our attention to the cabinet next time on the Moot Workshop. Hi, thanks for watching. If you really liked that video, please click the like button. And if you like what we do in general, please subscribe, because that not only lets YouTube know that you like us, but it also lets you know when we have a new video, and we do post a new video every week. And if you really want to encourage this behavior, head on over to our Patreon, because your contributions will help us get exhibits for the museum, but more importantly, it'll help buy us parts and supplies that we need to refurbish and otherwise restore these items so that they work and they're in the best condition they can be. Thanks again.